You'd be surprised what comes up in conversation when paleontologists spend long days in the field. Some of it is deep time in ancient ecosystems. Some of it is, well, trying to remember our fourth favorite hat. This is Fourth Favorite Hat, a look into real dig site chatter of the Montana Dinosaur Center. Each episode brings you the work, the stories, the arguments, the questions, and the odd tangents that emerge when you put scientists, shovels, fossils, and too much sun in the same place. And yes, every guest still has to answer the only question that really matters. What's your fourth favorite hat? Let's get started.
Hello, I'm Andy, and my fourth favorite hat is my South Dakota Badlands dad cap.
I'm Bret, and my fourth favorite hat is my Lake Champlain Lake Monsters baseball cap.
I'm Bryce, and my fourth favorite hat is my wide-brimmed Denver Zoo hat.
Hello, everyone. This is Editor Andy from the future. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, I just wanted to clarify something. This is going to be a long episode. We are covering everything from the Pre-Cambrian to the Paleozoic. Our original intention was to just explain what the geologic timescale was, but we got sidetracked. Shocking, I know, given the whole purpose of this podcast. And I would like to just make clear the subdivisions of the geologic timescale. We didn't do it as flawlessly as we thought we did. So the largest division is the eon. This is then followed by an era. Within eras are periods. Within periods, you have epochs. And within the epochs, you have ages. Okay, that should cover it. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. For today's episode, we wanted to talk about the geologic timescale. It's something we talk a lot about, and we kind of use vague enough terms to make it easy to digest. We'll say before the dinosaurs, after the dinosaurs, stuff like that. But what all does that really mean? It's conveyed a lot of times in media that, oh, if it happened in the past, it all happened at the same time, right? Well, we would like to clear up some of that confusion. For starters, the geologic timescale covers the history of Earth, starting with what we kind of cite as its formation at about 4.6 billion years ago. And I'm going to stop right there and just explain how fundamentally brain-breaking that age is. A singular billion is a long time. Try to count to a billion.
1, 2, 3. Too hard. I give up.
Yeah, that should showcase it's very easy to depict T-Rex and Stegosaurus together, but when there's tens of millions of years between them, well, a lot of things can change in any given amount of time. What is the geologic timescale and how is it subdivided?
The geologic timescale is basically just a way to break up time into chunks that are basically more manageable. There's several ways that they break it up. So the first kind of level of breaking up time is what we call the eons. We break up time into what are 4 eons to basically subdivide Earth's history. The first one is called the Hadean. The Hadean is kind of the beginning of when Earth is formed. It's called that because back then, the first 500 million years of Earth is still very molten. Entire surface is lava. It's very unlivable. There's no
We're
fossils
also
going back that
constantly
far.
getting bombarded by asteroids.
An unlivable place. We don't have any fossil record going back that far at all. I mean, even the rock record doesn't really go back that far.
The oldest rock we know of is coming at the end of the Hadean.
Yeah, so that's kind of how we break up the end of the Hadean when we have the first kind of rock record.
So a lot of these subdivisions, these breaks in time, are going to be based off of massive shifts in the rock record. But yeah, the Hadean, named after the Greek underworld Hades, which is named after the guy who owns it, Hades. There's a reason it's named after the underworld. Not a good time to be around.
Right after the Hadean comes what we call the Archean. The Archean lasts a lot longer of a time, 1.5 billion years. It's a very long time. During that, we have lots of changes happening. The Earth's surface is cooling, where plate tectonics starts to happen.
We start to get liquid water.
Stuff like that. We can see some of these early rocks. If you want to see those and you're in North America, if you go up to northern North America, you can go up to what's called the Great Canadian Shield and see some of the oldest rocks in the world, and those are old Archean rocks.
Similar type. Have you ever been to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan?
I have not.
There is some gorgeous stuff there of some Archean rocks and then some Proterozoic rocks. And also they have really good meat pies from Cornwall because a lot of Cornish people went there. So, that doesn't have much to do with the geology, but they're really good.
Do you think it was influenced by the abundance of Archean rocks?
Yes and no, because it's specifically a miner's dish. And these guys were mining the Proterozoic rocks for the iron.
Oh, well, there you go.
So, kinda, yeah.
One
Yeah,
thing Andy mentioned there when he was talking about the rocks being also some Proterozoic rocks, that's actually the next time frame. It's called the Proterozoic. That means early life. And it's called that because that's when we first start seeing life appear.
there's
Um,
a few big events going on. This is going to be when Snowball Earth is hypothesized to happen, when stuff got really, really cold. Some people prefer the phrase slushball Earth, but there's also the Great Oxidization event, which is going to be occurring about a very small time range of 2.46 to 2.06 billion years ago.
about a range of
And
500 million years.
yeah, but this is where the first free oxygen is going to be produced. Things called cyanobacteria are starting to produce oxygen into the ocean, which later fills our atmosphere. It also kills a lot of microbes. Turns out things didn't like to breathe oxygen at the time. We like it now, but
If you hadn't evolved to breathe oxygen when there wasn't any, when it suddenly appears, I mean, of course you're not going to like it.
mhm,
Yeah. Even with us, if we have too much oxygen, that's still also kind of poison
Yeah,
for
no
us.
good.
mhm.
So the Proterozoic's called that because it was when you see the first bits of life. But nowadays it's a little bit more debated, but we're not going to rename the geologic timescale at this point. There's some evidence of some early stuff in later Archean, but
Yeah, that's
this
also
is much
going to
more
be
recent.
really tricky because a lot of microbes, their biomarkers, the evidence of them sort of being there, a lot of early microbes have similar biomarkers to just like a black smoke or sea vent. Gets a
It's
little
a little
tricky.
tricky. But just know there's a little bit of debate about when the earliest life is happening. It was probably at some point during the late Archean, but that's how it goes.
Again, this is life that's like rock munching microbes.
Yeah, not multicellular life, really. Multicellular life only appears at the very, very end of the Proterozoic.
C-
Next time frame is
Yeah,
dominated by life. It's called the Phanerozoic. That basically just means lots of life. So that's basically starts at the beginning of the Cambrian. That's about 540 million years ago. And that goes until now. So we are still in the Phanerozoic when it comes to the eon that we're in.
and I can't imagine humans living to another eon. I think this will probably be our eon.
I mean, we got plenty of
That's
time. I mean, compared to the other eons, like we still got another billion years.
To clarify too, like eons are not a proportionally set thing. It's not like, oh, 500 million years have happened, time for the new one. It really is based off of a major geological shift.
Almost all geologic timescale that we're going to be talking about, no matter what the breakup is, there's some kind of event happening then that we can see visibly in the rocks. It's not like an
And
arbitrary time.
enough of the times it's been a catastrophe.
Almost
Um,
always it's extinction events. It's very
mhm.
easy to break up
yeah.
time using animals, what you can see in the rock and what's missing in the rock.
There are subdivisions of the earlier eons, don't get us wrong, but in the Phanerozoic is where most people will start to make their subdivisions. So the next scale of time, as we get smaller, that is going to be an era. This is where we get to the Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic of the Phanerozoic. Lots of the phrase zoic getting thrown around. But basically, that means early life, middle life, modern life.
The Latin root word there is zoo, like zoology or like that in general. It's just the study of animals. So zoo is just animal.
People will get really mad when you inform them it's not zoology, it's zoology. I don't really know
No, I
what you
never
want
really
me to.
thought of it like that, but yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, because if it's zoology, it would be spelled with three O's.
Rios, yeah.
But relatively speaking, an easy way to sort of understand the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, Cenozoic. Paleozoic is before the dinosaurs, Mesozoic is during the dinosaurs, and then the Cenozoic is after the dinosaurs, and specifically the non-avian dinosaurs. That's a criminal oversimplification, but it works. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, I agree. That's kind of
Yeah.
how I would describe it to most people.
These were a very prominent type of life. And even then, once you start to subdivide, this is something I've always kind of had an issue with. Calling stuff the age of. People will be like, this is the age of man. I'm like, there's other things.
Sometimes people
Yeah.
will
I
call the
mean,
Mesozoic like the age of dinosaurs and the Cenozoic the age of mammals.
Yeah. And I'm like, there is so much more going on.
The age of
yeah. I mean,
reptiles is
even.
another one people use for the Mesozoic, not
Mhm.
just dinosaurs.
Mm,
Well, I'm seeing right here on one of my notes, some person actively refers to the Jurassic as the age of belemnites.
I have heard that, yeah.
It's
a very British
true,
thing.
but like, how many people are actively saying that?
If you say that, you're almost certainly British.
Yeah.
Lots of belemnites on the Jurassic coast in England. Like Archie might say that.
Look, I love belemnites. It's just I've never heard that one before.
That was the number one time to be a belemnite, of course. They
Dude,
ruled everything.
if I had to be a belemnite, would have been during the Jurassic.
That's
So
fair.
speaking of the Jurassic, what does that breakup time come under?
That is a period. Periods are the next smaller division, and I'll go through starting with the oldest one, and we can talk about them more in depth afterwards. But if we start with the Paleozoic, we start with the Cambrian, go to the Ordovician, then the Silurian, the Devonian. Internationally, the next stage is called the Carboniferous, but in America, it's the Mississippian and Pennsylvanian, followed by the Permian. Then we enter the Mesozoic, and the periods are the Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous. And once we get into the Cenozoic, we have the Paleogene, the Neogene, and then the Quaternary, because someone screwed up the naming.
It used to be called the Tertiary, something you might have heard.
Yeah.
So it used to be the Tertiary and the Quaternary.
But then the Tertiary was divided into the Paleogene and the Neogene. Was the Mesozoic supposed to be the secondary, or what was the secondary?
Yeah, the Mesozoic was the secondary, the Paleozoic was like the primary or whatever.
But we kept Quaternary because we can't have nice things.
If you've ever heard of the KT boundary, that used to be the Cretaceous Tertiary boundary. Now you might hear it called the KPG boundary because it's the Cretaceous Paleogene boundary. That's when the
You'll
dinosaurs
still
go extinct.
likely hear people referring to it as both, even though KPG is the correct one nowadays.
I also just kind of prefer KPG.
Really? KT always just had
K-
like a better roll to it for me.
No.
It does sound a little better to me.
No, KPG sounds like a Star Wars droid, so I've always liked it.
That's
You say it
fair.
like KT doesn't.
No, KPG sounds like I could tell that guy to get me like a soda pop while I'm flying through space.
Right, but like imagine, right? KT, like it'd be like KT 43 or something, and then you abbreviate to KT because it sounds like Kate.
Yeah,
So you're
you'd be
calling
like,
them
hey,
Kate.
KT, come over here.
Oh, speaking of like the abbreviations in Star Wars, I find it so genuinely psychotic if you have the subtitles on. They spell out their abbreviations.
R2D2 is spelled out.
Yeah, so instead of just the letter
ARTOO.
R and the number 2, it's ARTOO to say
Yeah,
R2.
because technically that's how his name's spelled. It's just weird.
Vile work. Fundamentally upsets me.
Yeah, that's kind of strange. How do they
So we
spell
wanna-
D2? Is it
D2.
DEETOO?
Probably.
I don't think
I
they
don't
ever
really
do
see
it.
that one
They don't
written.
really spell that out. They just kind of say R2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then
Yeah.
3PO.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just vile work. But what's not vile is understanding the geologic timescale.
Yeah. The eras are less important, I think, than knowing like the periods.
Mhm.
Periods tends to be like what most of the focus happens with.
Once you get to the
Yeah.
periods, that's when people start calling it the age of blank. I've mentioned before I worked with Devonian fish. That almost feels redundant to say because the Devonian is known as the age of fishes. And before I get anybody trying to correct my grammar, fishes is correct when you are talking about multiple different types of fish. I had someone try to actually my thesis name, and I'm like, no, it's correct.
But knowing the period tends to be pretty important in geology. In my first ever like geology class, I remember our first test was you have to put them all in the correct order and spell them all correctly. And
Mhm.
like it would be every day at the start of class you'd have to do that.
I will never forget the order of the Paleozoic because of the mnemonic my professor gave me freshman year of college, which was "Come on, Satan, don't make people pray."
Really?
Yeah.
You want to know what I was told?
What?
Come on, smoke Dave's crazy pot.
Oh, because Carboniferous.
Carboniferous. Yeah.
Yeah, I was taught the American way.
I was taught the international way.
Bryce, did you get a fun mnemonic?
Not for those, honestly. I got it for like the phylogenetic classifications of things. They gave me one, but then I kind of like adapted it to be better for me. Which
Well,
ended up
Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. What's it sound like?
Dear King Philip choked on 4 golden spoons voraciously.
Which one of those is tribe?
That doesn't
Tribe
get
actually doesn't
part of that
doesn't
one,
put it in there.
Mm.
sadly. It only this goes down to variety and excludes like suborders and tribes and things like that because
Oh, so
everyone
Bryce-
always forgets about them. But
Bryce, what is a tribe?
a tribe is a clade that is below subfamily. Describes animals that are more closely related to each other than sister clades.
Back to the geologic timescale.
Yes. Here we can start to break down more in depth what's going on. Should we start with the Cambrian?
We should start with the Cambrian.
I'm sure so many people have heard of the Cambrian explosion. A better term would be the rapid diversification of hard body parts, but I get that that's less catchy. The concept is that there was a explosion of life because we're suddenly seeing it in the fossil record. There was life prior, it was just soft, goopy things that didn't fossilize well.
Yeah, the origin of multicellular life is in the kind of time before this called the Ediacaran, but that's not really fun to talk about, I guess. We
Yeah,
don't really.
not as much.
I like them, but they're called the Ediacaran biota because we don't even know if it's an animal or a plant.
Yeah, they're just kind of like little couple-celled guys.
Imagine
Hmm.
something squidgy. There you go. You probably just got an accurate indication of what Dickinsonia looks like.
But in the Cambrian, we see all kinds of crazy things start to appear.
My
Yeah,
my
like
boy
everyone's most recent
Anomalocaris.
favorite. Yeah, the strange shrimp, who's not really
I
a shrimp. But
I love Anomalocaris so much. It's the first evolved apex predator, which is kind of a biological nothing meaning phrase, but I'll use it here because it's cool. Because it swam fast enough and it had eyes. And in the Cambrian, that was like bringing a nuke into like your hunting grounds. And the reason it's called strange shrimp, dear listeners, Google Anomalocaris real quick because I'm not gonna be able to describe this thing to you. All right, have you all done it? Okay, cool. Those graspers near its round mouth, originally only those were found, and they're like, that is a weird shrimp. And then we found more of it in the Burgess Shale. It's like, oh, it's a really weird shrimp. It's not a shrimp at all. That's how weird of a shrimp it is.
yeah,
So Andy just mentioned the Burgess Shale. The Burgess Shale is kind of the best preserved fossils from the Cambrian. It's this big shale in Canada that has a bunch of preservation of both hard and soft bodies from the Cambrian, and that's really what led to our biggest understanding of the Cambrian and like what type of animals lived there.
Mhm.
it's nice to have that level. High grades of preservation are called Lagerstatt, which is just a German term.
It is used to mean the mother lode.
But it just means like some exceptionally preserved fossils
Mhm.
generally.
Yeah, whenever you see like fossilized, like soft tissued animals, if you see like little spiders, if you see like shrimps or just crustaceans of any kind that are more than just like their core body, probably from a Lagerstatt.
Archaeopteryx was in a Lagerstätten, but we'll get to that later.
Another thing that shows up in the Cambrian that you guys probably have heard of is a trilobite. Trilobites show up then. Trilobites are little like insect type guys almost. They're
As
arthropods.
as they diversify, if there's a niche to be done in the ocean, a trilobite will do it. They'll last up until the Great Dying, which we'll get to.
They're going to be around for a long time. So just know the next several periods we go through, trilobites are still going to be around.
Hmm.
They're everywhere, they do everything, and they're eaten by pretty much anything that's around. They're just little insect guys. They're not really insects, they're before them, but
There
similar
were
kind of role.
over 1,000 species of them. They diversified, like some of them had the most complex eyes we've ever seen in the fossil record. Some of them had no eyes, some of them could swim, some of them could burrow. Ah, love them.
Some
They're
of them
such
have like a
weird
bunch of
little
spines, some of them don't.
Yeah.
They were so abundant that we actually have a pretty comprehensive understanding of their life cycles. We have found fossilized versions of them for pretty much all stages of growth and doing so many different behaviors. And in case everyone wanted the fun fact, trilobite just means like a three-lobed entity, effectively, because their bodies were made of three lobes.
Yes. All of the modern phyla that we have can trace their origin to the Cambrian. But like chordates, which is what we are, was a little kind of wormy guy with a thick nerve rod named Haikuichthyes. It's kind of like a fish.
Hooray for notochords.
And then there's stuff like hallucinogenia, which is named such because the person felt like they were hallucinating looking at it.
Oh, did
Yeah.
you see the more recent fossils they're finding of hallucinogenia? I don't actually remember how recent these are. But they found a bunch of them, and they appeared to have be like swarming like scavenger guys.
I don't
That's
know if
cool. I
I've
did
seen
not
that.
hear about that. No.
Yeah, they just find a bunch of them eating like little things.
Horrific. I love it. It makes sense. They have to eat something. I just didn't put too much thought into them scavenging carcasses. And then there's like Opabinia, which had like 5 eyes and a little snabber for a mouth.
Yeah, lots of weird body plans you see then that don't really survive to us today.
I can't stress enough, dear listeners, you gotta look these guys up. Us as simple mortals cannot describe them in justice.
Yeah, just look up weird Cambrian creatures, and I'm sure you'll find a bunch.
All of this life is occurring under the oceans.
There is
Landmasses.
no terrestrial life, plant or otherwise, at this point in time.
Mhm. Landmasses are forming, but they're not getting colonized.
Cambrian
And
lasted for about, 50 million years, this whole time period. So this is not just like a short time. This is a long time that we're seeing this kind of diversification happening in.
Before we move on to the Ordovician, just a complaint I have about the Cambrians' naming of the the stages, which we'll get into what a stage is later. You have like the Ferongian, but you also just have series 2. Give it a
They
name.
weren't really creative with those. Whoever
Yeah.
named that was like, I don't wanna.
That's like the tertiary quaternary.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some like formations that are like that too. I forget which ones they are, but it's like, oh yeah, we have like the blah 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 member. We have 2, 3,
hmm.
and the blah 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 member. It's like, okay.
Next up, we have the Ordovician. Life still underwater.
Bryce, you want to tell us about like what type of life kind of appears? Like what's the most important stuff that happened biologically during the Ordovician?
During the Ordovician, that's going to be when the first true vertebrates actually start popping up around. Still all going to be in the water. No one's really venturing onto land quite yet,
Mhm.
but we're going to start getting more definitive shapes, less wackily shaped fellows in terms of just amorphous bodies, at least.
They're still wacky shaped. Like, these guys don't got jaws.
For sure. They're agnastosomes, mainly. Not
There's
quite as blobular.
from like the Ordovician to parts of the Devonian, there are a lot of fossils where just these fish without jaws just got something stuck in their mouth and they suffocated.
Kind of sad.
There's like a sizable amount of them where it's like, oh, if only you could have closed this. It's sad, but it's kind of funny.
All right, so I'm going to tell you one of my favorite facts about the Ordovician. Maybe it's about the whole geologic timescale. Reading the Ordovician, it's actually pretty likely that the Earth would have had a ring like Saturn. This is actually pretty new information, only coming out over the last few years. It's likely that during the Ordovician, there was actually, Earth had some asteroids break up in its orbit, and it had a temporary ring that lasted for about, like 12, I think, million years or so.
Do you know who put it there?
Yeah, asteroids that broke up.
Oh, I thought like maybe Paul Bunyan. This feels like his kind of thing.
But when the rings are there, we actually have a period of glaciation happening on Earth because of the reduced sunlight caused by the rings and like the rocks in the atmosphere, or not the atmosphere, but orbit, blocking some of the light.
And that kind of leads to a sad thing about the Ordovician is it has the first of the big 5. The big 5 refer to the 5 biggest mass extinctions in Earth's history.
And the end Ordovician happens at the end of the Ordovician, and it happens due to freezing, global cooling, when basically most of the surface water on Earth, maybe all of it, we're not entirely sure, probably not all of it, but most of it freezes, killing off lots of the life in the oceans. Of course, not all of it.
I find it so funny that people are like 85% of marine species. I'm like, but everything was a marine species at that point.
Yeah, but often it's just like 80 of known species.
Hmm. But that's going to be happening about 443 million years ago.
And the Ordovician lasted about 43 million years, 44 million years.
Next up, we have the Silurian. Bryce, tell us about what's happening in the Silurian.
This is going to be the period where the first life manages to actually come up on land. It took quite a while for complex life to do that just because being outside of the water presents its own unique challenges, mainly the unrelenting radiation of the sun and how dry it is. So
But also,
anything
like,
that's out there,
gravity.
well, sure, gravity too.
Mhm.
Basically, you need to have like means of like keeping yourself together, not drying out, and having like reproduction methods that would also allow for those things to, carry out. So plants manage to do that first, pretty simple ones,
Mhm.
as well as like some fungi as well. The shores were fairly simplistic, like vascular, like plants with like pretty similar like vascular tissues. And then as they perished, they would be consumed by little mushrooms.
So
There weren't any
stuff-
like woody plants yet either, so simple
The
stuff.
forest would have been really squishy.
Yeah.
And stuff is continuing to diversify in the ocean. We start to see our first jawed fish. We start to see some placoderms, which are my boys, the armored fellas. A lot of
There's
fish. And then you
Still
get like,
plenty of arthropods, though.
there's plenty of
like-
arthropods. Why don't you tell us about some of them?
Like Eurypterids are starting to appear. Eurypterids are big sea scorpions. You may have heard of them.
They're horrific. I have been asked if I could go back in time to eat one extinct animal, what would it be? I genuinely think I would boil a Eurypterid like a lobster.
Yeah,
So-
that would probably taste pretty good, I imagine.
I
I'd
was
think about
playing
it.
Pathfinder the other day,
Mhm.
and one of the creatures in it are Eurypterids, and it specifically says that their meat doesn't taste that good.
This is slander.
Which is funny. It's like the one note they have on it.
I want to eat more mud bugs.
It'd probably be something like lobster-esque, I would say.
Yeah. The argument I hear is like they're detritus eaters. I'm like, so are lobsters.
Well, they're not really detritus eaters in the same way lobsters are.
But I don't think that's the deal breaker. Like catfish eat a lot of muck and they fry up nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after the Silurian, we enter the Devonian. I have a soft spot for the Devonian, given that This is where my love of taphonomy started with my Devonian fishes.
I thought that was actually like during the quaternary that your love of fish started.
Okay, yes, while in the quaternary, researched fish from the Devonian.
Yeah, thank you.
Well,
Thank you
they
for
already dead.
clarifying
Like you're
that.
probably researching the rocks that they formed when they fossilized. Yes.
Hey, Bryce,
Hmm.
I'm gonna grab you by the ankles, spin you over my head, and throw you out a window if you sass me again.
How far do you think you could throw me like that?
If I treat you like a hammer doing the track and field events, probably not too far.
Yeah. Imagine this was the Scotsman. Okay.
Oh, if
How
I'm
far could you
caber
throw me?
tossing you, I think I could get a decent distance.
Do you
Okay.
think like you could land like Bryce on his head, flip him over, like the caber?
It depends how well Bryce cooperates.
Bryce, how flippable are you?
Well, I'm in a pretty cooperative mood right now, so probably pretty flippable.
Yeah, then I think I could do it.
Fair enough.
That doesn't have much to do with the Devonian, but the Devonian is the colloquially called Age of Fish. You get a lot of placoderms, the armored fellas. You get the sarcopterygians, which are the lobe-finned fish. You get the actinopterygians. You get all the fish. You also start to see a fun interaction where as the placoderms decline, the chondrichthyans, the cartilaginous fish like sharks, start to increase. We see this several times throughout the fossil record as like one dominant entity starts to decline, another is like, oh, room for me? Ecological niches need to be filled. The thing I always loved to do, specifically the fish I worked in, were in the Juvation-Fronian divide. Again, giving you a hint at the next subdivision, the ages. But the epochs of the Devonian, which, again, another subdivision, are the early, middle, late. So the Juvation is the latest of the middle, and the Fronian is the earliest of the late. I feel like I'm an Alice in Wonderland character trying to explain that kind of timing. It feels a little silly, admittedly. But during the end of the Devonian is when we also get another terrestrialization event of the Sarcopterygians, the predecessors of us, the predecessors of tetrapods. Everyone you know, everyone you love is a lobe-finned fish. Have you guys ever heard of Tiktaalik?
I have.
Yes.
It's one of the more famous fossils out there.
Yeah, so Tiktaalik is the first lobe-finned fish that flopped onto land. It didn't get too far. It didn't have developed limbs or pelvic and pectoral girdles, meaning it couldn't really lift its body off the ground. A big issue with colonizing land is gravity, but it could flop onto land. It could pull itself up a bit, and that was a useful enough escape mechanism that these traits started getting passed down. And in the next period, we'll see more of this developing.
Before we go on though, there is one very popular fellow that starts coming about during this time period as well, and that's gonna be the Ammonites.
Mhm.
Everyone loves those guys. They started here.
I've mentioned it before, but during my master's thesis, my roommate was an ammonite specialist.
What
I
age
would
of
always bully
ammonites?
him that my mosasaurs ate his ammonites, though.
Were his
You know.
ammonites contemporaneous with your mosasaurs,
Yeah, so
or were they from the
both he
Devonian?
and I worked on for our master's late Cretaceous stuff from the Pierre Shale. To clarify, I'm jumping ahead. This is a different project. Mosasaurs super weren't in the Devonian, nor were his species of ammonites. But yes, ammonites are fun. Sharks are fun, which this is the fact I love to give as we start getting sharks in the Devonian. Sharks are older than trees.
Yeah, so the first trees have not appeared.
Now,
When the
Also
first sharks
older
appear.
than trees, the Appalachian Mountain Range.
yes.
Actually-
The issue with that statement is you have to understand it's not the same shark species, but the grouping Chondrichthyan is older than trees.
The first trees do appear at the end of the Devonian. Of course, the sharks appear before that. The other thing that happens, we mentioned the first terrestrial life. That was the first terrestrial like vertebrates coming on land, but also the first terrestrial invertebrates come on land during the Devonian, like the insects. That's a pretty worth noting.
The ancient fossils of like the carnivorous almost spiders, horrific, just terrifying creatures.
Yeah, lots of scary stuff like that.
Yeah. Near the end of the Devonian is the late Devonian extinction. About 374 million years ago. There is a slow kind of depletion of oxygen in the oceans, which leads to a decline of about 75% of the species. Anoxia caused by likely global cooling. It's a little hard to find the exact trigger mechanism for the global cooling, possibly a meteoric impact or maybe volcanism.
This one's a little like the worst understood of like the kind of extinction events.
A lot of these guys, since they live in the water, they need to breathe the air through the water, the oxygen. The oxygen becomes lower and lower in concentration. Well, a lot of large-bodied animals are going to die from this. Then we move on to the Carboniferous in the international sense, Mississippian and Pennsylvanian in the American sense. And the reason for that is purely America has a better rock record of this time that we can confidently say there is a change in the rock record. Globally, not so much.
Any guesses where you can see that rock record? Like what state?
Alaska.
Oh, so
Oregon?
close. It's actually like Mississippi and Pennsylvania.
Really?
That can't be right.
Of course, you can see it in many other states than just those two.
Like a lot of things, they're named after where the first outcrop is kind of discovered. It's not incorrect when people say the Carboniferous and don't subdivide it. They simply don't have that shift in the rock record. For our sake, because we are Americans, let's start with the Mississippian of the Carboniferous. The Carboniferous is, as a whole, named because this is when a lot of coal is getting formed.
Yeah, well, this is when starting from the end of the Devonian, trees started being a thing, but there isn't really anything that can actually digest their bark. A lot of things are kind of a lot of woody material. It's not quite wood. Is piling up, unable to be consumed, unable to be decayed, just kind of lumping up, which eventually did catch fire and made a bunch of coal.
For a while, terrestrial life just was not adapted large scale for digesting plant matter. It's really rough material to digest and incorporate. It's just easier to eat meat because you're already meat. And we start to see a lot of that coal. We start to see a lot of limestones form because the oceans started to transgress, and we see some interesting environments forming, like swamps and lagoons. It's a very humid and muggy time period. And largely, there's going to be a higher amount of oxygen throughout this time period. With the Mississippian in particular, this is where we kind of start to see tetrapodomorphs, which are those in-between states between being a proper tetrapod and not a tetrapod at all. This, I would say, the whole Carboniferous, I can confidently say, is that arthropods ruled the earth in terms of animals.
Because of that high oxygen content, these arthropods, which breathe through their skin, can actually grow to be a lot larger than they can today. So if you've ever seen, like, maybe you've seen like a documentary or like a model of like these giant insects, this is when they were around, was in the Carboniferous.
This is also where you get the giant millipede, the Arthropleura.
Yeah, they were called the living carpet, which is accurate, and it's like, oh, I would not like to see this thing moving. I don't have like insectophobia, but I do think seeing something that large just kind of carpet around would be upsetting.
Yeah, not something you want to see.
Yeah, I don't have insectophobia for modern day arthropods. I don't know how well that statement would hold up once I'm transported back in time.
It's a little different when they're like 20 times the size.
I think that's just a survival mechanism at that point. Then if we go into the Pennsylvanian coming after this is where basically biodiversity wise, all modern classes of fungi have evolved, at least at this point. Invertebrates, they're doing fine.
Some of the most famous ones that get shown around a lot are these guys called Meganeura, these gigantic dragonflies.
They were the antagonist in Godzilla versus Megaguirus. We do see some great fossilization, the wings. While fragile, there's some good fossils of Meganeura with the wings preserved. We start to get amphibians, and the big issue that they have to overcome is the desiccation of their eggs. Their eggs would dry out if not put in water. So the Carboniferous is where we see the amniotic egg, the harder shell, the food in it. We see that in the Pennsylvanian.
The amniote group being named after the thin little extra membrane on the inside of that harder shell called the amniotic layer.
Some interesting diversifications are occurring. This being later Carboniferous by international standards. This is where we can start to see, proper tetrapods. Stuff has finally started to adapt for moving on land. Not everything is just a belly dragger.
Starting about 300 million years ago, give or take, is the Permian. The Permian is the last period of the Paleozoic era, and it is kind of different from kind of the rest of the Paleozoic, where we're starting to see a lot more diversity on land. We're seeing not only like tetrapod groups, things like, like Eriops, like these big tetrapods. We're also starting to see groups of what are called synapsids, which are basically almost like proto-mammals. One that you're probably most familiar with would be Dimetrodon. Dimetrodon is a big animal. It's got the big sail on its back. If you Google it, I'm sure you'd recognize it. Oftentimes people think this is a dinosaur. It's actually not. It's actually not even that closely related to dinosaurs at all.
No, it's
It's
much
more
closer
closely
to
related
us.
to us. Yeah, these are synapsids. Synapsids are called that. They have one kind of hole in their skull. Dinosaurs are diapsids. That means they have two. The synapsids are the groups that will later go on to become mammals.
Yeah.
There's other ones,
Yeah.
not just Dimetrodon, things like Gorgonopsids. Lots of diversity happening.
The synapsids will spawn off the cynodont group, which are going to be more directly moving towards the mammal direction of
Mammals.
things.
Outside of biology for a moment, this is also when the formation of the supercontinent Pangaea will be occurring, and that's going to cause some problems later on down the line. Things are also still diversifying in the ocean. We're seeing so many mollusks and brachiopods, which are like a clam but not at all, and echinoderms, so stuff like crinoids and starfish. It's a really rich flourishing in the ocean, which is a shame because the third mass extinction, the end Permian mass extinction, is largely considered to be the worst, oftentimes called the Great Dying. Yeah. End Permian, or the Permian Triassic extinction event, somewhere between 90 to 95% of life became extinct, which is very scary to think of. That's a lot of things.
It's also the extinction event that finally got rid of the trilobites. We talked about them earlier. They were around for a long time through all these periods. They lived through two mass extinction events, but not this one. So that gives you a scale of how big it was.
And this is such a key thing to look at is extinction events are rarely simple. And by rarely, I mean they are never simple. A lot of people want to point to one thing. No. So during this, Siberian volcanic traps were going off and they were eating through coal deposits from the Carboniferous, causing extreme amounts of greenhouse gas release and climate change, while also acidifying the ocean. But you also have Pangaea, I mentioned this being a problem. It being a supercontinent caused issues with ocean circulation, caused issues with water getting to the whole continent. So it became a desert with low water content. Everything was going wrong at the end.
And a lot of these actually created like feedback loops. One of the things people are saying is that the warming caused frozen methane under the ocean to melt, which, added more methane to the oceans, making it less livable. So lots of things happening kind of in conjunction with each other, where they're feeding off of each other to create like a very bad situation.
Yeah. Something that I find personally scary with ocean acidification. Not only is the water corrosive to your skin, it makes oxygen inaccessible to be inhaled. So you're also suffocating while you're getting eaten by the water. It's like, oh, cool, it wasn't killing me enough.
Not a good time to be alive at the end of the Permian.
Well, not a lot of things stayed that way.
There were a couple like more, I guess, charismatic or well-known land guys that made it. Like one of the guys who famously survived this extinction was Lystrosaurus, this funny little guy, funny little quadrupeded man.
Yeah, that one is a good time.
Keep your eye on him.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll do something cool down the line.
He was in one of the Jurassic World movies where they had like a puppet of him. He had like a name, I think. He was in the black market part. Oh, his name was Leonard. It's never addressed. You just have to accept that his name is Leonard.
It's a good
Maybe he
name,
was like,
a strong
maybe
name.
he had a tag for your
Oh,
collar.
maybe. I don't remember much from the Jurassic World movies. They're kind of bad.
They had a Dimetrodon in Jurassic World, one of them as well.
Yeah, and they made it swim, which was like, maybe not.
They also had a bunch of them sitting in a cave to ambush them.
Yeah, it seems like a very weird place for them to live.
Yeah. Hey, this rigid body animal, what should we have it do? Swimming.
Yeah, that is fair.
But the key thing with the end Permian is life didn't end. Things did survive, and from there, ecological niches were refilled. The Triassic gets weird.
It does. There's a
Like,
lot of wacky things that happen in the Jurassic.
I think the Cambrian is gonna have probably the record for some of the weirdest fellas. Triassic is on the podium. Is that safe to say?
I mean,
Yeah.
after all these extinction events, you're always going to see like a weird like diversification. Lots of new things open up.
Yeah, that's something we will cover in the next episode as we start to delve into more in-depth the epics of the Mesozoic. We hope you guys have enjoyed this episode about the Paleozoic and the Proterozoic. As always, I've been Andy.
I'm Bret.
I'll be Bryce.
Have a good one.
That's one conversation down, and there's millions more waiting for us out in the ancient dirt. If you want to join the crew on their next auditory adventure, subscribe to the Fourth Favorite Hat, the Montana Dinosaur Center podcast, available wherever podcasts are distributed. You can follow the museum on social media at TM Dinosaur Center, visit tmdinosaurcenter.org, or swing by the museum in Bynum, about 80 minutes north of Great Falls on Highway 89. Thanks for listening.